When life closes one door, it often opens another. But do you have the patience and faith to walk through it? In the darkest moments, when everything seems to be against you, love and sacrifice can bring light to your life. Imagine dedicating your entire existence to loving and sacrificing for someone, only to have that very person turn their back on you. The pain, the loss, and the betrayal, that was what David, a simple man living in the suburbs of America, had to endure. David was once a man full of dreams and hope. Born into a working-class family, he didn't have much, but he made up for it with hard work and the belief that his efforts would lead to a better life. By the age of 25, David was a strong, energetic construction worker with a promising future. To his friends and colleagues, he was an inspiration, always radiating positivity and ambition. But life is unpredictable, and no one can foresee what's to come. One fateful day, while working on a high scaffold, David slipped and fell. The catastrophic accident not only broke his leg, but left him with a permanent disability. Though he survived, he could no longer walk without a limp and had to endure constant pain. His bright future was now clouded with uncertainty. He tried to find solace in the people around him, but the world grew colder. The friends who once stood by his side drifted away, not out of malice, but because society often forgets those who are no longer perfect. However, David refused to let despair consume him. He decided to start over from scratch, taking on the humblest jobs to survive. He roamed the streets collecting discarded bottles and cans, repairing broken items others had thrown away. At night, in his tiny room, he would tell himself that as long as he could still stand, he wouldn't give up. But one day, fate tested his resilient heart once more. One chilly morning, while wandering along an old canal searching for scrap, David heard a faint cry. At first he thought he was imagining it, but as the sound grew clearer, he couldn't ignore it. Following the cry, he stumbled upon a small basket hidden beneath some dry branches. What he saw left him speechless, a newborn baby, lips blue from the cold, its tiny body shivering in the frigid air. David hesitated, unsure of what to do. He looked around, hoping to find someone nearby, but there was no one. His heart broke as he saw the baby's frail hands reaching up as if pleading for help. He thought to himself, "Is this a sign? I have nothing, but at least I have a roof over my head. Maybe, just maybe, we need each other to survive this life." Despite knowing how hard his life already was, David made the decision to take the baby home. He named the child Ethan, a name that symbolized strength and resilience. From that moment on, David's life entered a new chapter, a chapter filled with love, sacrifice, and an unyielding hope for the future. Even amidst the hardships, he believed this child was a gift, a beacon of purpose and light in the darkness. Ethan grew up surrounded by David's unconditional love. Despite living in poverty, David tirelessly worked day and night to ensure that Ethan had everything he needed. During the day, he collected discarded bottles and cans on the streets, carrying a heavy sack over his shoulder under the scorching sun or freezing wind. At night, he would sit under the dim light of a makeshift lamp, repairing old and broken items he found, hoping to sell them for a little extra money. These long days often ended with David falling asleep at the workbench, his head resting on a pile of scraps. Yet every time Ethan smiled, his exhaustion seemed to melt away. That smile reminded him of why he worked so hard. It was all worth it. David poured his heart and soul into raising Ethan. However, his overwhelming love unintentionally led Ethan to become dependent. David often told himself, "As long as Ethan studies hard, I'll handle everything else." Ethan was not asked to do chores or deal with challenges. This upbringing slowly fostered a sense of entitlement in him. Even so, David couldn't help but feel proud as he watched his son grow into a healthy young man with bright eyes and a cheerful demeanor. When Ethan turned 21, he announced his plans to get married. David was overjoyed, seeing his son find a partner to share his life with. On the wedding day, David dressed in his simplest but cleanest outfit, his face beaming with pride despite his humble appearance. The ceremony was modest but filled with love, and for the first time in years, David felt like life was rewarding him for his sacrifices. Ethan's bride, a beautiful and lively young woman named Sarah, seemed kind and respectful. She treated David well in the early days of their marriage, often preparing his meals and ensuring he was comfortable. David felt reassured, believing that his son had chosen wisely. But happiness can be fleeting. A few months after the wedding, Sarah began suggesting that her parents, who were struggling financially, move in with them. At first, Ethan resisted, citing the limited space in their home. However, Sarah's tears and persistence eventually wore him down. One day, Sarah's parents arrived with their belongings, and they quickly made themselves at home, occupying the largest and most comfortable room in the house. David, on the other hand, was relegated to a small, dimly lit room. He said nothing, silently enduring the changes. He convinced himself that as long as his son was happy, he could tolerate anything. Over time, the situation worsened. Sarah's attitude toward David changed. Once attentive and considerate, she now treated him with indifference and, at times, disdain. One evening, she suggested moving David to the storage shed at the back of the house, claiming, "You'll be more comfortable and have peace there." Her sweet tone belied the coldness in her eyes. Ethan hesitated but eventually agreed. Unable to stand up to his wife, David moved into the damp, moldy shed. Nights were especially harsh as the cold seeped through the thin walls, intensifying the pain in his old injury. Yet, he never complained. In his heart, he thought, if this makes their lives easier, I can endure it. He clung to the hope that his sacrifices would secure a better future for Ethan. However, the breaking point came one quiet night when David overheard a conversation between Ethan and Sarah. "Ethan," Sarah whispered, "we can't keep living like this with your father here. It's time to consider putting him in a nursing home. It's the only way for us to have peace." Ethan hesitated before replying, "But people will judge me. They'll think I'm a bad son." Sarah responded firmly, "It's for the best. They'll forget in time." Those words felt like a dagger to David's heart. He sat silently in the dark, his chest heavy with pain. The realization that he had become a burden to his own son was unbearable. That night, David made a decision. At dawn, he packed a small bag with a few clothes and left the house without a word, leaving behind a note that read, "Ethan, I'm leaving. The house is yours now. Live well and don't look back." David boarded a bus to a city he had never been to, determined to start anew. The bustling city streets were a stark contrast to the quiet life he had known. With his limited savings, he couldn't afford proper shelter and resorted to sleeping under bridges or in public parks. By day, he returned to the familiar routine of collecting recyclable items, navigating the city's alleys with a worn sack on his back. The harsh weather and constant physical labor took a toll on his already frail body, but he pressed on. One day, while scavenging through a trash bin, David accidentally cut his hand on a piece of broken glass. The wound was deep, and the bleeding wouldn't stop. Weak and desperate, he stumbled into a nearby clinic. There he met Michael, a young businessman waiting for a routine checkup. Michael noticed David's condition and struck up a conversation. David hesitated, but eventually shared his story. Michael was deeply moved by the tale of a father's unwavering love and sacrifice. Michael decided to help. He not only covered David's medical expenses, but also offered him a chance to rebuild his life. Learning about Ethan and the circumstances that led to David's departure, Michael felt compelled to intervene. He believed that such a selfless father deserved better from his son. A few weeks later, Michael arranged a surprising reunion. One morning, in front of Ethan's house, a line of 10 luxury cars pulled up, drawing the attention of neighbors. From the first car, David stepped out, supported by Michael. Ethan, bewildered by the spectacle, came outside and froze at the sight of his father. Overwhelmed by guilt and regret, he fell to his knees and burst into tears. "I'm sorry, Dad," Ethan choked out, his voice trembling. "I failed you. Please forgive me." For the first time in years, David saw genuine remorse in his son's eyes. He embraced Ethan, tears streaming down his own face. It was a bittersweet moment, one of pain, forgiveness, and reconciliation. From that day forward, Ethan vowed to honor his father's sacrifices. With Michael's help, Ethan and Sarah worked to rebuild their relationship with David, ensuring he would never feel abandoned again. The story of their reunion spread throughout the community, serving as a powerful reminder of the enduring bond between parent and child. The story of David and Ethan is not just a touching tale of fatherly love, but also a profound reminder of the importance of gratitude. Often, we take the love of our parents for granted, failing to recognize the unconditional sacrifices they make for us. David dedicated his entire life to caring for Ethan, enduring unimaginable hardships to ensure his son had a better life. Yet, like many of us, Ethan only realized his father's immense value when he almost lost him forever. The reunion between David and Ethan brings a heartwarming conclusion, but not everyone is fortunate enough to have such an opportunity. Life often moves at a relentless pace, filled with responsibilities, distractions, and pressures, causing us to overlook the people who have quietly stood by us, sacrificing everything for our happiness. In the rush of modern living, we sometimes forget that our parents are only with us for a fleeting moment in time. This story serves as a powerful reminder. Cherish your loved ones while you still can. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let your feelings of love and gratitude remain buried beneath the hustle and bustle of daily life. A simple act of kindness, a heartfelt word of appreciation, or a small gesture of care can mean the world to your parents. Often, they don't seek extravagant gifts or promises, but long for your time, attention, and acknowledgement of their sacrifices. If this story of David and Ethan has touched your heart, share it with those around you. A small story can spark meaningful changes in how we view and treat our families. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on Life Stories 365 so you don't miss more touching and inspiring stories. Each story is not just a lesson, but a journey that helps us rediscover the core values of life and the bonds that matter most. Let's spread the message of love and hope to everyone. Love is not only the greatest strength we possess, but also the most precious gift we can give. Take a moment to pause, show more compassion, and never forget to thank those who have sacrificed so much for you. Thank you for watching this video. We hope the story has resonated with you and inspired meaningful reflections. Join us again for more heartfelt stories on Life Stories 365. Until next time.